Thank you. So thank you, everybody. Welcome to the virtual meeting of the Transportation Planning Council for April 12th, 2021. And I appreciate very much that you've taken some time off of your schedules to participate in the virtual workshop and to see the presentations that we have lined up for you. So with that said, Madam Clerk, would we, I think to recognize those council members that are present, can you please make note of those that are present? Thank you.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. I'll read the list of those members that have advised that they will be attending. I begin with Danny Iglesias from FDOT.
Present.
Barbara Handrahan, SFRTA.
Present.
Jose Sanchez, City of Hialeah.
Present.
Bernard Buxton Teta from City of Miami Gardens.
Present.
Julio Brea, City of Homestead.
Present.
Annalise Banix from Water and Sewer.
Present.
Rita Carbonell, City of Doral.
Present.
And we have Vice Mayor Chris Davis from the City of Opa-locka. He is our new member representing the League of Cities. Welcome, Commissioner Davis.
Thanks, guys. Present.
Are there any other council members that are present that wish to be recognized?
Vivian Jose Gonzalez is present.
Great, welcome, Jose, thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman, I believe we're ready to proceed.
All right, thank you. So given that we're back into a virtual workshop world here, just wanted to provide a quick overview of the rules of engagement. But before I do, I just wanted to give to welcome as a chair to the Vice Mayor, Mr. Davis. So welcome aboard and to the TPC, and I hope this is going to be interesting and fruitful for you. So with that said, the rules of engagement, this workshop is being held obviously virtually and is being recorded. If you experience technical difficulties, please contact Lisa Wang at the number shown or at the email address as a member of our technical support team may assist you. All attendees will remain muted throughout the duration of the workshop. If you wish to provide a comment, please raise press the raise hand button and I will recognize you. Then your microphone will be unmuted. Your microphone will be unmuted until the comment has been fully addressed. In compliance with all applicable rules and regulations, no actions or motions shall be permitted in this virtual workshop. Discussions shall be limited to matters listed in the published workshop agenda. Permissible discussions include the presentation itself, questions and answers, and comments related to the presentation. Any committee member deviating from these guidelines will be reminded as to the limitations of such discussions. And lastly, please hold your comments until presentations are concluded. So with that said, let's go through our agenda. We have 3 informational items. And the first item is item 1A, fiscal year 2022 through 2026, Transportation Improvement Program Annual Report. And we have Mr. Christopher Rosenberg from the Miami-Dade TPO ready to lead a presentation on this item. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the TPC. My name is Chris Rosenberg. I'm the Finance Manager for the Miami-Dade TPO, and I'm here to present the Transportation Improvement Program for fiscal years 2022 through 2026. As the Chair mentioned, this is an informational item today. We will be coming back at the May TPC meeting for your endorsement of the document. which will then move to the full TPO Governing Board for its subsequent adoption at the May TPO Governing Board meeting on May 20th. Next slide, please. First and foremost, before I start my discussion, all of you on the TPC, I'd like you to please give a thank you to your staff who have been working with me and my team. We've had 15 weekly TIP development committee meetings in which all of your staff have been extremely engaged. This is year 2 of working in a pandemic to develop a multi-billion-dollar federally required document. It's not an easy thing to do. And I just wanted to recognize all of your staff for their engagement and their participation in all of the weekly meetings that we've been holding. It's been quite a remarkable feat of partnership, and I wanted to extend that gratitude to all of you. So thank you. This is the artwork for this year's TIP. We do have 2 documents. They have been provided to you by hyperlink. They're posted on our website. This is the artwork for the full TIP, and we also have a citizens version. Obviously, the full TIP is over 1,600 pages. So the citizens version is about 98 pages, much more condensed and user-friendly for members of the general public to kind of get a feel and understanding of the major transportation projects that are coming over the next 5-year window. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the TIP is a federally required document. We do have to update it annually, and throughout the year, it can be amended as needed. So, this part of the cycle is where we're working the draft copy through this committee structure. We receive feedback throughout the process when we're developing the document. And obviously the document itself is a consolidation of all of the major transportation improvements, surface transportation improvements in the Miami-Dade County urbanized area. So the fiscal years that are covered in this new TIP are fiscal years 2022 through 2026. It is priority period 1 of the long range transportation plan. And what we do is we basically add in the new 5th year and we adjust the common years of the document. As I mentioned, the document can be amended once it is adopted by the TPO Governing Board for any major project changes, which includes financially or scope changes, advancements, deferrals, what have you. Next slide, please. So I'd just like to walk the TPC members through the development schedule and milestones for the TIP development cycle. Every year we kick off the TIP development cycle in October. So this past year, October 2020, the FDOT work program, tentative work program was presented to the TPO Governing Board. Once that's adopted by the TPO Governing Board and they approve it, that basically initiates our cycle, because at that point, the TPO is able to see, what projects have been funded in the tentative work program, and we're able to then reconcile that against our list of program priorities. And we can kind of, put a little bit of meat on the bones so that we can begin putting together the full document. But that is really the impetus that starts the cycle. Starting in January, we opened up the database system for all of your staff and all of your capital budgets to be loaded into the interactive website. That's an extremely important portion of the TIP development, because although we have multiple meetings where we talk about everything, the actual data entry happens on the website, and that was opened this year, January. So starting in January through the end of March, like I mentioned, we had 14 meetings. This past week, we actually held our 15th meeting of the TIP Development Committee. And those meetings are very helpful because we're able to coordinate amongst agencies before project decisions are made and they're finalized in the TIP. So one of the benefits to the committee structure is that, different agencies are at the table, in this case, virtual environment, and they can coordinate. So like, for example, if there's a resurfacing project that's planned in fiscal year 2023, and that's going to impact a local utility, or there's another intersection improvement that's abutting that project, the people who are responsible for those projects are sitting at the table and they can talk those through so that they can make adjustments to their schedule. So that's one of the big benefits. But we held 15 meetings as of just this moment, and we were able to put everything through the end of March. On March 23rd, we began our 45-day public review period that is also federally required. So that coincides with the TPC schedule. So what we do is we start the 45-day clock 45 days prior to the May TPC meeting. So it basically ends on May 7th, which is the Friday preceding the Monday TPC meeting, in which we hopefully will receive your endorsement of the document. So just last week, we went to CTAC for their initial review and presentation. I presented the material to CTAC last week. And today, April 12th, I am presenting for the first time to TPC for the informational item today. The green section at the lower portion is upcoming milestones. So first and foremost, we're going back to CTAC on May 5th. That is the first committee in which we hope to receive endorsement of the document. 2 days after that, the public review period ends. Important to note that anything that is collected during the public review period is documented and archived. So basically, all of the comments that the public submits, we collect those and they become part of the agenda package that goes to the TPO governing board. So they'll be reviewing the draft document, they'll be seeing what the public had to say about the document, and they will be taking that into consideration when they make their adoption in May. May 10th is the TPC scheduled meeting for the endorsement of this document. And then we conclude the cycle on May 20th with the TPO governing board, hopefully adopting the TIP. Next slide. So this slide is representative of quite a year that we just went through. Like I mentioned, thank you to all your staff for helping in getting this document done. But obviously we had COVID-19, greatly impact not only the functionality of the committees and doing the work, but obviously the revenues. And one of the hardest parts of putting together a fiscally constrained 5-year horizon for all surface transportation improvements was getting down to the point where we could say, okay, this is what the revenues are. We were expecting a lot worse than where we ended. When COVID-19 was raging and we were waiting for revenue estimating conference data, the outlooks were grim. So you will note that this year's TIP, the 5-year total, is lower than last year's TIP, but we were expecting it to be much lower. So a very hopeful note is that the revenues seem to be stabilizing, and that's reflective in the transportation investments that we're going to be seeing over the next 5 years. And we hope to see them going back up to the pre-pandemic levels very shortly. So here on this slide, you'll see just a very consolidated format of the different sections of the modalities in the TIP, but you can see a lot more detail in the executive summary, which is just a few pages into the full document. The state road system is about 4.3 billion out of the 7.5. Public transportation is 2.5 billion. That's actually very, very impressive as a percentage. 34.3% of the overall TIP is public transportation related projects. You can kind of take that as a reference when you're comparing it to statutory requirement for how FDOT has to address projects. The statutory requirement is 15%. So overall, for the Miami urbanized area, our investment in public transportation is double what the statutory requirement would be for FDOT. So I think that's a very important statistic that we should really reflect on. And then the rounding out the total, the county road system is 614 million. Next slide. Last year, when I presented the TIP, the performance management measures were a brand new federal requirement in the document. So this is year 2 of living with this new federal requirement. And I think that we've seen a lot of the benefits, although we had to adjust and learn in order to incorporate it in our document. This is year 2 where we've been living with it for 2 years. And one of the benefits that we're seeing of collecting and measuring these performance measures is that we're able to extrapolate a lot of macro data, and it helps us inform our future investment patterns. So for example, the Vision Zero safety target, we can assess how much we're investing towards projects that are going towards improving that measure. And we can determine, are we doing enough? Are we seeing a marked change in traffic crashes and fatalities? That can help inform decision-making when it comes to future investments. Do we need to invest more? Are we doing okay? Are we moving the dial rapidly enough so that we can ultimately achieve a Vision Zero target? So one of the really great benefits of this new section of the TIP is we have system performance reports. We've got a lot of really important statistics that are reflective, and we've already received some pretty positive feedback from our federal partners who have seen the draft document, and they were very impressed with the level of detail of our performance management measures section. So I encourage all of you as technical members to go through that section. And again, thank your staff, because we couldn't do that alone. Our board does adopt the measures as the TPO, but those measures are reflective of the actual work that your agencies are doing. So thank you. Next slide. And that concludes my presentation today. I will be coming back next month. We'll have some major project information, and we'll be able to answer any questions between now and then that you may have. But I do encourage you to go into the link that was sent in your memo. It's posted on our website. The 45-day public review concludes on May 7th, as I mentioned, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have any questions or comments for Chris or on the presentation?
Hey, Mr. Chair, this is Danny Iglesias, FDOT. I'd just like to make a few remarks to Chris and his team. Great job on the presentation. Very informative, good information there. I think we've worked closely and have had a good working relationship with the TPO staff in the development of this and in coordination of our tentative work program as well. So I appreciate the coordination and the collaboration, and look forward to continued communication coordination in the future. And, I think I agree. I think as far as the public transportation investment in South Florida, it's telling that, double the statutory requirement of 15% is where we're at here in Miami-Dade County. So look forward to continued investment in that sector of public transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Any other comments or questions on this item? Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, TPC members.
Let's move forward to item 1B, Smart Plan Transit-Oriented Communities Monitoring Tool. And we have Ms. Janine Geslonde from the Miami-Dade TPO staff and her consultant through Renaissance that are ready to provide you a presentation on this. Janine?
Yes, good afternoon. Like you said, my name is Janine Gaslonde. I'm the project manager for this tool, and we appreciate the opportunity to show all of you today, unveil in a way, the capacities of this tool that we have been developing since February last year when we started this contract. The Transit-Oriented Communities tool, it's a web-based data visualization tool to track progress on the local and regional planning and developmental goals along major rapid transit corridors in Miami-Dade County. The TOC, how we call it, Transit-Oriented Communities, the TOC tools aims to provide insight into how transit stations, areas, and corridors change over time through public and private investments in the housing, commercial buildings, recreational space, transportation infrastructure, and more. So basically, this tool focuses on the TOC component as a very important component of transit-oriented development for the area, for the growth of the region, and it's a management strategy. So it helps tracking the development, while at the same time it gets good information for the decision makers in the future for any development in the smart plan corridors. We have worked this tool together with the Miami-Dade County IT department, in addition with some local jurisdiction and partner agencies. So today, the project manager from Renaissance, Alex Bell, is going to show you briefly what is this tool about and how this tool is going to be able to help us in provide information, not only for us, the TPO, but also county level, state level, for what is going on and what will happen in the future with the smart corridors. So I'm not going to make this too long. So Alex, thank you for being here, and go ahead and show the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Janine, and thank you everyone for allowing me to talk about our transit-oriented communities monitoring tool that Janine just did a great job introducing. She gave a pretty solid overview of the project. We'll touch on a few other high points and then walk through what we've done in terms of developing the tool in the last year or so, give you a sense of what our next steps are to complete the version 1 process and see where things go from there, and then we'll open the floor up for discussion. So let's get into it. We'll move on to the next slide, please. Overall, our big objective with this monitoring tool is to put things in a visual interface that help us to kind of see and feel and understand the trends that are happening around us and put them in context. So we're tracking our progress towards the SMART plan goals, not just over the last few months, but over the last few years, and with the eye toward continuing to monitor those things over time and keeping tabs on development. As Janine mentioned, we've been at this for about a year. We're wrapping up at the end of the fiscal year, but the tool itself will just be getting started and growing into maturity from there. We can go into the next slide, please. So transit-oriented communities might be a new term to some folks. Many people are familiar with the term transit-oriented development, which has been transformational in transportation and land use planning over the last several decades. And transit-oriented communities really is an extension of the TOD concept to consider some metrics that really go beyond pure development outcomes and to look more at both the urban design and the sort of experiential quality of place that integrate the built environment with our transportation infrastructure. The focus for most TOC types of analysis is on that immediate walkshed around our existing or planned rapid transit stations. But as we'll see in the tool, we can extend that focus to a corridor or even system-wide level. We have recognized that transit-oriented communities, or TOD in the more classical sense, is also a major part of the region's comprehensive planning strategy and growth management strategy. So many documents, including our long-range plans, the comprehensive development master plan, and of course, the SMART plan is sort of touching on numerous fronts. I really emphasize this mode of development, and it's important for the region's long-term growth potential. So let's, I guess, move on to the next slide. To keep it very simple, our objectives were to have a tight focus on our SMART plan goals, the things that we could address with respect to TOC specifically. There are probably a couple of other goals that are just outside the realm of our immediate purview, but we wanted to focus on those SMART plan goals and develop transit-oriented communities metrics and indices that we could monitor across a number of diverse topics and track those trends over time and really encapsulate all of that in a simple interface that people could explore. We're hoping that this tool would then lead to certain outcomes like, having a regional venue where we can report and understand the trends and collaborate on planning for a common future, and we can facilitate decision-making at a regional level in a way that is more coordinated and clear in terms of not just being sort of in our parochial context, but really seeing both that local view as well as our regional context. Next slide. We have been developing the transit-oriented communities monitoring tool with a cadre of local planners and representatives from different agencies who have been active and involved in developing the framework for the project and the tool and giving us feedback on our progress as we go. Those folks are, of course, along the SMART plan corridors and heavily involved in planning for the future development and implementation of the SMART plan. We've had 4 major coordination efforts with those groups and a lot of informal coordination with individuals and small teams on the side. We do have 1 more scheduled to sort of wrap up our project working group involvement that will happen sometime in the next month or so. Yeah, we can move on, I think, from there. We have organized this first version of the TOC MT into 4 primary topic areas. Economic development focuses on the built environment and the development trends in the region. Urban form sort of looks at the sort of typical planning and transportation indicators with respect to how the built environment informs travel. So we look at development intensity, land use mix, and network connectivity. We've also included some indicators that sort of branch in the direction of resiliency and will allude to some other ongoing planning efforts that speak to that, a very important aspect of planning and development. Our regional travel box covers a lot of multimodal travel statistics, reporting on trends over time and what modes people are using and how they're using them, what they have access to by different modes, VMT generation, and so on. And then our local access box takes us down into the station area to really look at the proximity and connectivity. Are we able to get to the station in a timely manner? Can we get to parks? And do we have the comfortable non-motorized facilities to really make that local travel very comfortable and accommodating? So that's, I guess that's it for that slide. The layout of the tool, first of all, this is all in a big website, and we'll get a moment to take a look at that here in a minute, I think. Because there's a number of different topic areas and a lot of things to report on, it is compartmentalized into these topics and subtopics, as you see here. But everything is accessible through a top-level menu that allows us to get to anywhere in the site quickly, and we can bounce around and look at different metrics, and we have some resources for finding the metrics that you're looking for at any given time. So we won't belabor a lot of the organization, but just to let you know, this is sort of how it's laid out and stitched together. I think we can move on, and at this point, I would like to share my screen, and I can do that here. Share. Right, so this is the homepage for the TOC monitoring tool. It, of course, shows the organization of the topics, as I just mentioned earlier. So at the front page, we already have a window or a path right into any of the details. We do provide some preamble that helps the reader understand what the tool is about, what the smart plan is about, and get used to working with some of these visual dashboards and reporting on just some of the smart plan characteristics. So these are just examples of ways for folks to sort of build the muscle memory and get accustomed to working with dashboards and seeing some of the maps change and the widgets change and things like that. We do have, at any given time for users, instructions on how they can navigate the maps and work with the spatial data and the representation and visualization of those data depending on their preferences. So that's always a resource that's available to us. And like I said, everything is always available via a top level menu that allows us to explore the whole site very, very quickly. So if we were to just patch through a couple of quick screens here, the Transit Oriented Communities Basics page really provides us an overview of what TOC is all about, how it's implemented, what we really mean by the station area and how that relates to like walk sheds and bike sheds, and introduces our aspects of TOC that I covered earlier. We could go then to any of our overview pages for our respective topics. They'll provide some preamble to introduce the reader to what the topic is about and information on how they can access, well, really a link to how they can access the dashboard with information on what's in there. And these will also include, in some cases, outside links to resources that might be useful for the reader to familiarize themselves with topics or to get more information on stuff that is adjacent to or relevant to the tool but isn't built into the tool directly already. If we were to pursue our growth monitoring topic, we would find a dashboard like this where our information is organized into 3 tabs: residential units, employment, and floor area. We also have information organized by time frame. So the snapshot shows the most recent year of available data. In that case, this is 2019. 2020 data, I'm sure, will be available soon. Our historical trend helps us track trends over time, and this is going to reload the page for us here, so that we can see how dwelling units, employment, overall building floor area has changed over the last 5-6 years, and that will be an ongoing trend that we can track things over time. And we have a near-term outlook that shows us where permitted development is expected to change the landscape in the near-term future. And so for all of these, we're reporting a consistent set of metrics, including how many residential units are there, what percent of the countywide total is there, what's the ranking of stations within a selected corridor by the topic of, the topic of interest, the metric of interest. So if it's jobs or new jobs resulting from permitted development, it's all about what selections you have active at the moment. And then we can explore the information on a corridor by corridor basis or on a station-by-station basis. And when we click on these submenus, it will change our geography, and we'll get feedback from the tool in terms of current conditions, the historical trend, or that near-term outlook. I will say the tool can be a little sluggish when I'm co-presenting and running it, and it does a little bit better when we're not on the video call. So you can see some things updating in real time. It's just not behaving quite as quickly as it normally would. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on to show a couple of last sections that are relevant about the tool, and then we'll switch back to the presentation. In our additional reading section, we've provided information on the key planning efforts where TOC is really resonant in Miami-Dade. So again, the CDMP, the LRTP, and the SMART plan are all listed here. And we've provided some resources that look at the concept of TOC and TOD implementation, for that matter, on a broader scale in terms of research around the world, mostly in the US, but a couple of cases that are international as well. And then finally, since we didn't have time to explore all these different tabs, but we do have a lot of different tabs and a lot of different compartmentalization of different metrics, we have an index here whereby we can look for maybe a particular metric of interest and find where it is being stored. So if we were interested in multimodal travel, we could click that, and we would be presented with our dashboard covering trends in multimodal travel, including non-auto mode share, transit ridership, and so on. So I think that's it for the live demonstration. Again, we had to make this short and sweet, but hopefully it gives you a taste of what's being presented and the volume of data that's been collected in order to support this tool. I will stop sharing now, I think. Thank you. And we'll go back to the presentation. So obviously today we're having our workshop, and you've just gotten an overview of the tool. We are expecting to really finalize the site with all of its final data in the next couple days. And we'll be launching this later on in the month, making it widely available for public viewing and review. We'll still be accepting comments and questions on that during that review period. As Janine mentioned, Miami-Dade County GIS staff have been instrumental in developing and shaping the tool, and they have a part to play in terms of handing it off from our private workspace to the Miami-Dade County ArcGIS online portal. They will manage those resources and keep the tool and the data fresh over time, and we'll have some training and coordination with them to see that that goes smoothly. We have talked about a potential version 2. That's something the TPO is sort of weighing what needs to go into some additional considerations for metrics, performance standards, things like that could be added to this tool to help really tell us how we're doing instead of just reporting on the cold hard facts. And hopefully that also leads to more engagement from diverse agencies throughout the region that can really help broaden the scope of reporting and make it truly about transit-oriented communities, and fulfilling that goal of really being comprehensive and integrated in how we think about those. And then I want to say that we're on to the discussion slide at this point. Yeah, we are. So we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Alex. So do we have any questions or comments for Mr. Alex Bell? Okay, now I have one. Alex, you mentioned about rolling this out. Is this something that's going to be rolled out for the public working group members, or is this going to be accessible by all? For example, all the TPC can go in there and kind of tinker and kind of see what the tool is all about?
Yeah, so our project working group members all have access to the tool currently. They've had the opportunity to explore and provide feedback to us for the last month or so, I guess. And that will be ongoing for the next several weeks until we meet with them again. Sometime probably right in the wake of that meeting, but I think that's still to be determined with Janine and the TPO leadership. the site will be available for that public review period, and we will let everybody know, or I'm sure we have the means to let everybody know when it's fully publicly available and ready for that more public review.
All right.
So it is currently behind a password protected interface, but that will not persist for much longer.
All right. Last chance for any questions on this presentation. All right, hearing none. Thank you so much, Janine and Alex, for the excellent presentation.
Thank you. This, I just wanted to add that this tool, eventually will be a link in our TPO website where everybody will be able to log in and see what we have in there. So that's the idea, and the county will be taking over the tool and make it, available for everyone.
Great. I hope this seems to be a very powerful tool and to monitor and how these transit investments have movement on activity within their respective areas. So thank you. All right, let's move on the agenda to item 1C, Aventura Ogis Mobility and Access Study. We have Mr. Kevin Wolford from the Miami-Dade TPO, along with the consultant WSP to present. Kevin?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I like your selection in shirt and sport jacket colors. It wasn't planned, just everybody knows that. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Wolford from the Miami-Dade TPO, and I'm here to present to you the Aventura Ogis Mobility and Access Study. If you remember last month, you saw the other two mobility studies we did, that being Florida City and Southwest 344th Street. This month you're going to see ours, the third of the set. It's basically developed around the Brightline station in the Aventura area. My consultant is Catherine Prince from WSP, and she will now present the presentation. Go ahead, Catherine.
Thank you, thank you, Kevin. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Catherine Prince. I'm the project manager from WSP consultant side for the Aventura Ogis Mobility and Accessibility Study. The presentation today, first we'll look at the project background, then look at the stakeholder priorities that we were able to engage with our stakeholders and collect, then look at existing conditions and the proposed conditions, and towards the end, we'll open up for discussion. Next slide, please. Project background. The impetus for the project was that the county was constructing or is constructing the Aventura station, connecting Brightline basically from Miami-Dade to Palm Beach and the future extension to Orlando. The question was, what can we do now to connect people safely to and from the station? One of the proposals is to build a bridge from the proposed Aventura station to the Aventura Mall. And there are two phases. The first phase is going to be constructed this year, and the second phase is out a couple of years. So we would need to connect people walking and biking from the Aventura side, which is on the west side of Biscayne Boulevard, safely to the Aventura station, which is, the east side is where the bridge is going to be built now, and the west side of the bridge is going to be built later on. Next slide, please. Our study area was about half a mile from the proposed station, looking at people walking and biking, what infrastructure they would need, and a 1 mile travel shared for people using transit. And within this area, as you can see, there are a number of municipalities. So during a coordination meetings, we were able to engage with the different municipalities, also with the different jurisdiction, Miami-Dade County, as well as FDOT. Next slide, please. We looked at previous studies within the corridor, within the station area. There are a number of proposals for improvements for people biking. And in the previous studies, it was noted that Aventura station area has the highest number of people who are traveling by bikes. And also it has the highest number of transit riders through the entire, one of the highest transit ridership through the entire East Corridor. Next slide, please. Next, going on into stakeholder priorities. As I mentioned, we engaged with the municipalities and the agency owners, along with our neighborhood representative. We had about 3 meetings with the study advisory group. Also, we had separate meetings with the municipalities. And the input we got was provide transit connections, provide a safe alternate route for people walking and biking from the Aventura Mall to the new station. Next slide, please. In addition to the engagement with the municipalities, we went out and surveyed the people who are living and working in the general area. We engaged with multiple languages, both surveys online as well as by mail. We received about 350 responses, which is fairly substantial for the study area. A majority of the responses came from the Aventura area and people over 35 years old. Next slide, please. The survey respondents, we asked about 10 questions. The first one was, how would you like to travel to the station? Over a third of the people mentioned that they would likely use non-vehicular mode of travel. Next slide, please. And folks who wanted to walk, we asked what are the essential improvements? And what we heard was wide sidewalks, shade, and crosswalks. Next slide, please. And of people who wanted to bike, preferred to have dedicated bike lanes and storage locker at the Aventura station itself. Next slide, please. And folks who wanted to use transit, most preferred that we recommend, and we have longer operational hours. Think of the service workers who typically would not be on 9 to 5, but who have really odd timings. Also, shelter and the bus stops and instant updates on arrival and departure time of the Brightline train itself. Next slide. And this was interesting. Majority of the folks, about 75% of the people, said that they would use an on-demand transit in lieu of their private vehicle. So using that feedback from our survey, we also went out to the site to see what infrastructure is available, and we collected the data for pedestrian infrastructure, bike, transit, and we also went to look at the high crash location areas, which we'll be seeing shortly. Next slide. So the slides are organized first system-wide, area-wide, and then we'll be going into each corridor a little bit more detail. And first, the transit services. This is the existing service available for the folks accessing the new Aventura station. As you can see, a majority of the existing transit is on the east side of Biscayne Boulevard. Biscayne Boulevard is the north-south corridor on the map. On the west side, where the Aventura station is going to be located, there's one Miami-Dade County Transit's route currently serving. And also the local circulators, again, are all focused or concentrated on the east side of Biscayne Boulevard. So our recommendations, Kevin, thank you. Our recommendations are, one, to extend these circulators to the Aventura station, extend circulators to Hallandale, north of our county border, as well as south. and also to launch an on-demand transit service within the Aventura, city of Aventura, which they have already procured, as well as on the west side of Biscayne Boulevard. It's something which is not procured yet. Next slide, please. On vehicular infrastructure, we looked at what's happening on the streets right now. We looked at the ADT, the posted speed. We looked at current safety conditions. So we plotted the crashes, just the severe and fatal crashes consistent with Vision Zero principles, which Miami-Dade County as well as the Miami-Dade TPO have moved forward with. And it's very clear that Biscayne Boulevard is a high crash location. On a parallel study from Miami-Dade County, we know that Biscayne Boulevard in this section is one of the highest crash corridors in the entire county. Keeping that in mind, along with the feedback we got from the survey and the municipalities, our preliminary planning recommendations is to evaluate reducing posted speed and installing some traffic calming measures with roundabouts on the local streets. Next slide, please. And infrastructure for people who are biking. We looked at what infrastructure there is currently, and there are a number of bike lanes either for less than 5 feet or they are discontinuous. Also, we plotted the serious injuries and fatal injuries involving people who are walking and biking. Again, Biscayne Boulevard it kind of lights up along with Country Club Drive. And our recommendations, again, looking at the safety, the accessibility and the connectivity, is to extend or provide dedicated bicycle facilities connecting the William Lehman Causeway bike facilities proposed to Country Club Drive, and from that go north on Ives Dairy Road and connect to West Dixie Highway, which is where the Aventura station is proposed to be located. And then again connect the bike lanes north to Hallandale and south to Grinnell's Park and beyond. Next slide, please. The next slide, here we have an overview of the proposed multimodal facilities. On the left side, you have the existing sidewalk network along with the bike bed, serious injuries and fatal crashes. On the right side is our planning level proposed improvements, which include a number of crosswalks, roundabouts, and dedicated bicycle facilities. Next slide. Now we'll look at the corridors in depth. We're going to start from the west side, going to the east, and then from the north to the south. The first corridor is Northeast 26th Avenue. This is one of our residential street adjacent to Ives Dairy Road, and the posted speed is 30 miles per hour. Our recommendation is to provide more crossing opportunities because this is a residential area. And we suggest adding more pedestrian refuge island and consider and evaluate a roundabout at the intersection adjacent to or south of Ives Dairy Road. Next slide, please. The next corridor, Dixie Highway. This is where our proposed Aventura station is. Again, it's a very low volume roadway, 30 miles per hour posted speed limit. It has some bike facilities along the sections that have development, and the other sections there are no bike facilities, so it is disjointed. So our recommendation is to install or new crosswalks through the section of this roadway, and in addition to that, add dedicated bicycle facilities, separated bicycle facilities, and some roundabouts at key intersection where right now there seems to be a sight distance challenge. So we did notice some near misses as we were out on the site last year. So the dedicated facility we're proposing is a multi-use path, which will have a separated bike lane in addition to a a large sidewalk with shade, with some trees and street furniture for people walking and biking. Next slide. And here is a rendering of what that will look like. To the left, you see the pedestrian refuge and the safe crossing opportunity. And on the right, you can see the cycle track along with the large sidewalk, which provides ample space for people walking, biking, along with the lush trees providing shade. Next slide, please. Biscayne Boulevard, as I mentioned previously, this is one of the highest crash corridors. So we looked at this in a planning level, and our recommendation again at a planning level is to, in the short term, consider removing the pavement markings which indicate bike lane. They are discontinuous, and we do have a large number of people involved in fatal and severe crashes. And the long term, look at upgrading the bicycle facility with a dedicated bike lane. And in the short term, look at adding pedestrian refuge islands at key intersections that are signalized already. Next slide, please. Next corridor, Northeast 203rd Street and 29th Place. This is just east of Biscayne Boulevard, connecting Dixie Highway to the Aventura Mall. Here, again, it is a low volume roadway, 35 miles per hour posted speed limit. A recommendation here is at the termination of 203rd Street and 29th Place, we are recommending a roundabout just to slow the vehicles coming west of Ives Dairy Road, as well as to divert the folks walking and biking south to 29th Place. So these roundabouts will provide a safe crossing opportunity for people who are biking as well as walking with their own dedicated space around the roundabout. Again, the proposed path is a large extended sidewalk with a cycle track, so there's ample space for people walking and biking. And the next rendering you will see, next slide. This is the space, right? So that's Biscayne Boulevard, which is the overpass on top. The space is right under the bridge. And it's going east, it's facing east towards 29th Place. And you can see the extension of the median to accommodate for the enlarged sidewalk as well as the cycle track, and a raised plaza, which will reduce the speed of oncoming traffic and at the same time provide room for people who are walking. Thank you. Northeast 109th Street. This is a fairly busy street for transit vehicles. A majority of the transit routes enter this street to access the Aventura bus depot mobility hub. Aside from that, the number of, it's a low volume roadway, and the posted speed limit is 25 miles per hour. Again, our recommendation is to provide safe crossing opportunities for the number of bus stops. There is the crosswalks are very far apart from each other. Our recommendation is to consider providing more frequent safe crossing opportunities. Also, our recommendation is to repurpose one travel lane and provide for a continuous dedicated bicycle path, which will connect to the previous bike lane that I just mentioned, and then connect to the Country Club Drive, which is the next corridor. Next slide, please. Country Club Drive goes around the golf course, and our recommendation here is again to repurpose one travel lane for a dedicated bicycle facility, just again in a planning level, looking at simply the ADT, and evaluate providing more crossing opportunities through the entire stretch. There are a number of transit bus stops, and folks are crossing the street, even though there are no safe crossing opportunities right now. So the study really evaluated what can be done in the next 5 years, looking at the short term as well as the midterm. So our recommendations are to explore opportunities to install some of these improvements in quick build methodology and leverage the last mile, first mile connections, which are more informal, like the bike share, the scooter share, and the on-demand shuttles or transit vehicles. Next slide, please. We have some preliminary, so we saw that there are a number of municipalities who are providing their own transit opportunities, in, be it on demand or circulators, or between Miami-Dade Transit and Broward Transit. There are a number of transit opportunities. So our recommendation here is to try and integrate these different mobility services instead of having its own, each of them having their own app. Consider coordinating with Miami-Dade County's Go Transit mobile application so the end user has a seamless riding experience from point A to point B. Next slide. We have some preliminary cost estimates for the recommendations on the improvements we just discussed. Starting with the city of Aventura coordinating a comprehensive safety audit to the painting of, under the bridge that we just saw a rendering for. Next slide. And some cost estimates again for midterm recommendations. And the next step for this is really to coordinate with the different agencies to, again, evaluate the feasibility of these recommendations with warrant analysis and traffic analysis and such. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, thank you, Catherine. Do we have any questions or comments for either Catherine or Kevin?
Mr. Chair, Danny Iglesias, DOT again. Great presentation. I would offer that you, Catherine, take a look at our work program and specifically a project that we have at 203rd Street and Biscayne Boulevard. We are reconfiguring that at-grade crossing there and adding some movements, and I think it would be beneficial to coordinate with respect to what you're looking to do on 203rd Street.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, we did speak with the city of Aventura, who was coordinating with the PMs working on the project. I'm not entirely sure where that conversation went, but they are aware of our recommendations on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you. Well, with that, I think that wraps up. I think we've had a robust 3 presentations, almost an hour. And I appreciate everybody that tuned in and participated in this virtual workshop. Next month, we'll likely be meeting in person. As you saw in the TIP presentation, it is anticipated that the TIP action item would be coming before us. So with that, hope everybody has a great rest of the afternoon, and thank you very much. So this workshop has been adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.